So I disappoint my children all the time. You know, I don't know who they expect me to be for them, but I can't be who they want me to be for them. I love them. I will keep them safe. But I'm sorry, honey, you're not getting 24-hour Wi-Fi access. You're not eating candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's just not happening. And I know I'm disappointing you, and that's okay. I love you deeply.
Hey, before we dive into today's podcast, I wanted to share something very special with you. And you're going to want to hear this. And it's happening from now until July 15th. If you've been on the fence wanting to work with me in some capacity, maybe you've heard of my mastery coaching experience and you're curious about it, maybe your shit's coming up and you keep telling yourself you can't afford it or you don't have time, well, guess what? Now's the time when you're going to want to take action. We are doing a summer promo where we are going to gift you July and August. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I've noticed some interesting patterns with our children's behavior post-pandemic world and also watching women burning out at an alarming rate. And I am not here for all or nothing strategies. I'm here for the long game. This takes time. This takes patience and this takes consistency. And you need support. So if you don't have a plan on how you're going to reverse engineer how you want to feel in your personal and professional life, I want you to head on over to heatherchauvin.com/summer and check out our mastery coaching experience. Because if you apply before July 15th, you're going to be gifted. Yes, you're going to be gifted 2 additional months, which is over a $2,000 value. You can feel good and have your cake and eat it too. heatherchauvin.com/summer.
It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, and for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or have become shriveled and closed from fear of future pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it, or fade it, or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wilderness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes, without cautioning us to be careful, to be realistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you're telling is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty every day. And if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the sliver of the full moon, to the silver of the full moon. Yes! I always fuck shit up. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. That poem is called The Invitation by Oriah, O-R-I-A-H, The Invitation. Okay, ladies, so today I want to dive in to shedding guilt. I'm going to call it mom guilt, but I get a lot of variations of questions of how do I get over guilt? And, you know, you've heard me say this before, but I truly believe we ask questions, but we're not always seeking the answer. And we're seeking the easy way out, the emotionally comfortable way out, the way where we don't need to feel, the way where we can just check boxes. And when we're checking those boxes, we're actually not solving the problem. We're just moving away from the emotion that we're trying to avoid. So the reason why people ask the question, how do I get over guilt, is because they don't want to feel it, but they want to bypass it in order to achieve the desired outcome that they desire. So let me give you an example. Women that I attract want to live a free life. They want to feel alive. They want to have more connected relationships with their children. They want to have time freedom, be their own boss of their schedule, their time, their energy. This illusion, this facade, this dream that all of this is emotionally comfortable is what keeps people safe. And the reason why I really like that poem is because the invitation essentially is saying, I invite you to feel. I invite you to come into my home where it's going to be emotionally uncomfortable. The sorrow, the grief, the joy, all of that to be able to sit with me. Because if we do not give ourselves permission to feel all of that, you will have absolutely no skill or understanding in how to get over guilt, how to do something guilt-free. So I always like to give examples. And if you ever go to the grocery store and you walk down the baking aisle, or you walk down the candy aisle, you will see inevitably some advertising that says guilt-free cookies, guilt-free whatever. The reason why that happens is because they know that by cultural standards, they've brainwashed you to feel guilty for consuming certain products, baking goods, candy, whatever. Because guilt equals I've done something bad. That's the definition of it, is I have done something bad, and shame is I am bad. So I eat a bag of chips and it's like, I've done something bad. I can feel the guilt. Or I've gone a weekend away without my children. I'm doing something bad. I feel guilty. But it's kind of, shame is like the side effect of feeling guilty, of like, I am bad. That's like the belief, right? Of like, I am bad. Shame is I am bad. I am bad for doing these things for myself, or eating these chips or cookies, and like, or even doing something bad, like not bad, but like culturally unhealthy. It's like, It's just a deep, deep wound of lack of worthiness, right? So what happens? You either choose to kind of expose yourself to the things that allow you to feel guilt. Example, I feel guilty for being away from my children. I feel guilty for working out. I feel guilty for cooking myself a healthy meal or a meal that my children won't like. And I still feel guilt, but I choose to feel it. And I choose to sit with it. And I choose to invite it in. Now, when people ask me, how do you get over it? Sometimes I want to say, I don't know. I'll let you know when that happens. And other times I'm like, why are you trying to avoid it? Guilt just doesn't have control over me like it used to. So what I've noticed is it's guilt, it's fear, it's shame, fear of judgment, fear of success. Like fear manifests itself many ways. But if you are like, how do I get over my fear? How do I get over my guilt? If you are actually looking to get over something and not feel it, you will never succeed. Like you will never achieve the outcome that you desire because again, you're trying to cut off your feelings and you're trying to feel emotionally comfortable. And fear may be your comfort zone. I mean, a lot of people live in fear and so they just hang out there for a while. So when we want to create change in our lives, we have to invite the feeling that we want to get rid of. Let me give you another example. Yesterday, I had this experience, and I've had an experience like this a few times, and it's something that I have to do for work. And every single time I do this thing, I get praise for it, like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. But I always feel this sense of disappointment or like I wasn't good enough. And previous, when I was early in my business days, I would actually avoid doing that thing to avoid the feeling of disappointment and not enoughness. And because I'm like, oh, my body and my brain are telling me that I'm not enough, this is disappointing, therefore I don't want to feel this. So how do I get over disappointment? And I'm like, now it's not about getting over it. It's about the invitation. So I invite it in and I'm like, okay, disappointment. This is exactly what I did yesterday. Did the thing. I felt the feelings. Okay, disappointment. Why are you here? Interesting. You're always here when I do this thing. What the fuck is this? Like now I'm determined, right? So it's like a habit. It's becoming the identity of like, why do I not feel I'm good enough when I do this thing? Or what is this feeling that comes up? And I sit with it. I invite it in. I journal on it. I walk with it. But what I'm trying not to do, I'm not trying to get rid of it. I'm trying to use it as data. I'm trying to use it as like a symptom. Like, what is this trying to tell me? Is this a wound? I'm going to get feedback. What is the feedback? Typically, it's good feedback. So I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, disappointed. Who am I disappointed in? What am I disappointed in? And I sit with it and I'm inquiring about it. And what I realized, now I'm just annoyed with myself because I'm like, what the fuck is this? And when I ask myself, because I want you to pay attention, I'm not projecting outward. I'm not blaming anyone else but me. Well, I'm not really blaming myself. I'm trying to be curious. But I'm not like judging. I was like, oh, well, they did this, so that's why this happened. No, I'm just inquiring about my emotional response. So again, I'm not focused on the external environment. I'm focused on my internal environment. So I'm paying attention. I'm like, okay, what is this disappointment? Blah, blah, blah. And I ask myself, okay, I'm disappointed in myself because I'm trying to like go through my little questions. I'm disappointed in myself. Is that true? Maybe. What would I be disappointed in myself for? And then when I go down that hole, I'm like, well, I can see how I was trying to protect myself a little bit, and I was trying to over prepare, because I don't do well when I over prepare for things, because I'm very intuitive and I just like to flow. So when I over prepare for something, I feel like I'm cutting off a flow. And so when I asked myself that, I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, well, I am a little disappointed in myself because I keep cutting off this part of myself that just intuitively knows. And when someone else requests something of me, I'm like, yeah, I can do that for you. But deep down, I don't want to do that for them. Deep down, that's not how I work. So why do I keep cutting off that part of myself? So yeah, I guess there is maybe a tiny part of myself where I'm disappointed in myself. And then I realized that a lot of my disappointment is my fear of disappointing other people. But here's the thing. You're always going to disappoint other people because you cannot be who they want you to be. And the people, you will disappoint like a lot of people in your life. You will disappoint your children, you will disappoint your partner, you will disappoint your friends, even if you are a raging people pleaser. You will disappoint your clients, even if you are a raging people pleaser, even if you over deliver, even if you are like trying to meet every unrealistic expectation that they have. They're like, jump. You're like, how high? They're like, I need you at my house every morning at 8 a.m. You need to wake me up. You need to have dinner ready for me. I want my favorite coffee, blah, blah, blah. You're like, yes, ma'am, I will be there. And you do everything that they want you to do. You're jumping through hoops and you're still going to disappoint them because you have to realize them trying to control you has nothing to do with you. So I disappoint my children all the time. You know, I don't know who they expect me to be for them, but I can't be who they want me to be for them. I love them. I will keep them safe. But I'm sorry, honey, you're not getting 24-hour Wi-Fi access. You're not eating candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's just not happening. And I know I'm disappointing you, and that's okay. I love you deeply. Disappointing friends. Oh, wow. I disappoint my friends. Well, I might have used to disappoint my friends, but they're not my friends anymore. Because my friends know, like, true friends, if I say I don't have the capacity for that right now, they honor and respect that. They respect the shit out of that. So, the beauty is nobody can disappoint me. It is so fun to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't expect anything from you. Be yourself. Nobody can disappoint me because I only disappoint me, right? Nobody can disappoint me. So let me give you an example. Let's say I had a weekend planned with a friend and I am so pumped for this weekend because I really, really need this weekend. And I go, I'm packed, I'm ready. And my friend texts me and she's like, I'm not going to come. I feel so guilty. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, fine. I won't go either. Now I'm angry. Now I'm frustrated. Well, what am I angry at? Now I'm disappointed. What am I disappointed at? Did she trigger disappointment in me? Did she make me do that? Or did she just affect my emotional state? So in that situation, I might be a little disappointed, sure, but I can feel my disappointment. I can invite it in, but it doesn't mean that I still can't go on the trip by myself. It might trigger some fears of if I wanted to, like, if I have a hard time traveling by myself, but maybe it was an opportunity. Maybe it was an opportunity for me to grow. Maybe it was an opportunity for me to ask somebody else, or maybe it was an opportunity for me to just have solo time, and that was a growth experience for me. So would there be disappointment, or is that just momentary, like temporary disappointment? So let's go back to guilt. we need to realize that guilt comes from like a super loving place. The only reason why I feel so guilty for things is because I deeply love my children. I deeply love the people that I care about, and I have a big heart. But I also realize how selfish guilt is, which is ironic because people feel guilty for taking care of themselves, but then they don't realize how selfish guilt is. Because when you think about it, I always tell people, I'm like, don't make this about yourself. Think about someone in your life, and it may be, a woman in your life that is close to you or maybe a few generations behind or above. And I want you to think about a woman that that feels chronic guilt and how she shows up in her life. And she probably shows up as a martyr. She probably doesn't have much of an identity. She probably doesn't have much of her own ideas and thoughts because she lives for everybody else and she lives by everybody else's rules. And I want you to pay attention to how much of a burden she feels like, right? How much of a burden she feels like. And so she tells herself that taking care of herself, she feels guilty. So therefore she doesn't feel her guilt. She doesn't invite it in. She just avoids it. And then you have the woman on the opposite perspective where she might feel like a burden to other people, right? Because she's very codependent. But then the opposite of that is she's hyper independent. And that would be what I used to identify as the responsible one, right? I attract a lot of those women. They're hyper independent. They're responsible. They make the money. They do the things. A lot of people depend on them. And it's the same shit. And they feel guilty for doing things. They feel guilty for saying no. They feel guilty for not helping people. They feel guilty for, again, right? They might feel guilty for taking care of themselves. And I'm sure they take care of themselves in some capacity, but the next level of taking care of themselves. It might be more of like boundaries. And they feel guilty. And again, I want you to think about the burden, because maybe you're not a burden on other people, but you are so hyper independent that people want to love you and take care of you, and you will not allow them to, and how much that puts on the other person, restricting your connection to them. And this goes back to guilt. Guilt is so selfish. And we have to start asking ourselves, one, okay, guilt, why are you here? Right? You got to talk to it like it's a friend that knocked on the door. Hey, come on in. Why are you here? The invitation. Two, why do you keep telling yourself the same story? Like, why are you unwilling to grow and to ask yourself, why do I keep saying, how do I get over this? Why don't I start asking the question of like, how can I go after my dreams and take guilt along for the journey? Because guilt is still sitting at my kitchen table. And so is fear. But joy is there too. And gratitude is there. And they hang out. And I will tell you that when I started this process, guilt would not shut up. Fear would not shut up. They just talk. And then after a while, it was like joy got louder, gratitude got louder. And they're kind of there, but they're quiet now. They're the introverts. And that's how you need to think about your emotions, is like people, children. They need boundaries too. Okay, fear, I see you, but I'm going to do this thing that's going to make me emotionally uncomfortable. So let's just stop this nonsense about how do I get over guilt-free. No, let guilt in. Guilt's a habit. Let it in. And let's create new emotional habits. Let's say I choose guilt, but I also choose freedom. I can do both. I can feel both at the same time, but essentially I want freedom or energy or feeling alive to be bigger. And we do that every day. We do that one little baby step at a time. That's it. One little tiny frickin' baby step at a time. And when you do that, you begin to realize how fucking powerful you are. How much power was already inside of you. How much control you actually do have over how you think and feel. And how that influences your parenting. How you can see and understand your children's behavior on a bigger scale. How much that influences the work that you do in the world. And that's it. That is it. You let guilt show up and you say, I got you, I see you, but I'm just going to sit with you. I'm going to invite you in, but I gotta reach for joy just a little bit, just for 10 minutes today. I gotta reach a little bit, because if I don't, guilt, you're going to take over, and I gotta have a boundary with you. Because I am worthy of feeling other things besides guilt. You don't wait for guilt to go away. It will never go away. It won't go away when your children start school. It will not go away once summer's done. It will not go away when your children leave your house for post-secondary education. It will not fucking leave ever. Guilt is part of your identity. And if you identify as a person who feels guilty for taking a shit and wiping your own ass, you are going to feel that all the time. And so you need to feel your guilt and choose wisely.
Three years ago, I invested in working with Heather, and it was one of the best decisions of my life. It actually saved my life. It saved my marriage, saved my business, and saved my sanity as a mom. I did not know that I was going to grow into this capable woman who had 5 little tiny children, a business where I work less and make more, and a marriage where I actually feel totally seen. In my life, 3 years ago, I would have never thought that I was capable of doing that. But with the help of Heather and just the tools that she gave me, but even more so, just caring genuinely about her clients, that was what I really needed in my life to see my potential. And I'm sitting here now thinking, what are the next 3 years going to bring? Because I know it's just going to get better and better, because what she gave me is lifelong. And it's a gift that keeps giving. And if you keep doing the work, you keep growing. I could never fully repay Heather, and I don't know if she'll ever know the extent that she's saved my life.
There it is. You just listened to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. If you want to take this conversation to the next level, head on over to our private Facebook group community, heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN. That's heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. Also, if you are a huge fan of this show, please rate and review it on iTunes. Every review helps another woman like you take back control of how she wants to feel and become emotionally uncomfortable. I truly believe the better we feel, the more alive we become. This is how we are going to change the world. And if you've been watching me for a while, if you've been on the fence and you're curious, how can Heather help me? Head on over to heatherchauvin.com/work with me to check out my mastery and mastery business coaching programs. That's heatherchauvin.com/work with me.